Up next, we have the future of hospitality and interiors. So we already have two of the panelists are here with us. We've got Debbie Power, who is Associate Director at KSS, Liz Pattinson, sorry, I nearly forgot the end there, who has just recently changed her title and is now Head of Property at Ascot Racecourse. And last but not least, we've got Rob Padden, who is Venue Sales Director at Fulham Football Club. So thanks to the three of you for being with us this morning. I'll let you get straight into it.
Thank you. We were going to do a little intro again. Yeah, so my name's Debbie. I'm Associate Director at KSS and I lead the creative interior design team. We specialise in sports, so from training centres to stadiums. We had a fantastic end of last year, completing 2 new flagship training centres for Liverpool Football Club and Leicester Football Club. Work that we're extremely proud of, but we work also in sports hospitality, which is a big passion for us. Lots of high caliber clients such as Wembley and Twickenham and Wimbledon as well. So, and Premier League clubs, Liverpool, Leicester, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Southampton, Brighton, so just to name a few. So thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, my name's not Debbie, so it's showing off the screen there. I had some technical issues, so I do apologise. But delighted to be here today with you all. My name's Liz Pattinson and I'm Head of Property at Ascot Racecourse. I have over 20 years of experience in property and have been with the Racecourse for the last 4 years. I have a dynamic team and head that up with 25 people, and am responsible for all aspects of property, including estate management, maintenance, health and safety and development at the Racecourse. I specialise in strategic development and capital investment of Ascot's 264-acre estate. Here at Ascot, we have a diverse portfolio of properties spread across the estate, ranging in different construction types, uses and ages. The most iconic building for everyone will be the Grandstand, completed in 2006. Just a very quick overview. Ascot, as some of you will know, is over 300 years old, which is very old, and has a lot of rich royal heritage, having been founded by Queen Anne in 1711. We have 2 tracks, a flat and a jumps track for chase and hurdles that enables us to deliver year-round racing. And the Grandstand was constructed in 2006 at a cost of £220 million. I'll pass over now to Rob to introduce himself.
Thanks, Liz. So my name is Rob Padden. I'm the Venue Sales Director at Fulham Football Club. Some of you may know Fulham Football Club's London's oldest football club, based at Craven Cottage, right on the banks of the River Thames. Obviously, Craven Cottage is truly iconic. You know, it offers a truly authentic experience when you come to watch football at the cottage. And last time I spoke at ALSD International, obviously we were talking about Riverside Stand development and plans, and we're now here today, well underway of construction. Facility due to open next year, and Fulham Pier, which is the facility you can see on the slides here, is going to create this modern, world-class riverfront destination for our neighbourhood and the whole of London, for that fact. And we could end up with we will end up with the best of both, which is a game-changing Riverside Stand development, but also keeping some of the truly authentic areas of Craven Cottage alive with just an array of hospitality and leisure facilities. Also on the interiors piece, it's going to be pretty critical because this facility is going to have to work all day, every day, and of course for such a cross-section of society, but we obviously will go into that a little bit further. So just as our in conversation today, we came across 3 key themes that we felt would be a good areas to cover as part of this topic. So first, we're going to go into the 365 from a venue perspective, then perhaps look a little bit more on the event and match days. Then finally, a theme that kept coming through when we were discussing this topic with Debbie and Liz was around sustainability and considerations, particularly when considering interiors. So I'm going to pass over to Debbie to start things off on the 365 venue.
Thank you. So from our perspective as designers, it's really key to understand this side of the brief. It's often different stakeholders, whole different teams with different goals, different objectives, and a different business model as well. So, and quite often those briefs don't really sit in sync together. So there's often different directions that the client teams need to go in. So we try and understand those and almost mediate to a point where we get a consolidated brief and understand what might take priority, what could flex, and how things change. So clients really need to understand their business proposition, their aspirations, so that we can get that to that point where we understand as a collective what our brief essentially is. And it's really defining where the product sits on the pendulum of kind of how authentic the product is, how bespoke, how branded, and actually how flexible it is. The kind of conference and events teams often are quite confident in delivering their experiences in vanilla environments, quite flexible environments, but it's also thinking about how we can get those teams to think differently. So, you know, when we've done our work, for example, at East Stand, big expansion at Twickenham, that was how the spaces could be used in conjunction with each other. And that's how we try and get our clients to look at their estate. So whether it's an area of a stand or the whole stadium, but look at it as a collective, you know, how can the spaces be used to complement each other, even just for one event. So in the East Stand at Twickenham, the spaces are used vertically and guests use a multitude of different spaces, and thinking outside the box of what you could be offering. So rather than the traditional conference and events, you know, they now do gentlemen's afternoon tea in the East Wing. So just other ideas of how you can open up to a different audience and a different market, and understanding that one size doesn't fit all. We can't design the same set of suites and just pick it up and drop it into another stadium. It's about the local market and their guests and what the demands are, and whether it's even a club stadium or a national stadium, or what the sport is. You know, there's been lots of mention about the way that Spurs have addressed their 365 stadium strategy, but that was a very different approach from how Chelsea were approaching their stadium. So it really does depend also kind of who owns the stadium. So I'll pass over to Liz and Rob, and very different approaches of different sports and very different perspectives that they're going to take you through.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Yes, I think, you know, it's very interesting for, you know, that there's a big difference in terms of the type of sports that are held at different venues, or as a consequence, deliver different types of experiences and offer different opportunities for venues to operate in a 365 venue environment. I think for Ascot, you know, just to contextualise it, as a racecourse, we have 26 race days per calendar year, but we also have over 200 events held at Ascot, and these will range anywhere from a small corporate conference through to a big wedding, classic car auctions, farmers markets, and the like. And so therefore, you know, how we use our spaces, and you know, how we adapt those spaces for our different client base in order to ensure that we have the most amount of flexibility that we can offer in order to respond to our market and client base is very, very important to us. I think one of the things for us, because we do have a big site, we are very blessed with that. So it gives us a completely dynamic environment for which to offer what is a truly 365 venue. So, you know, the Grandstand, for example, is, you know, 7 stories in height. It contains 208 private boxes. We have a number of different restaurants, and you know, that they are for fine dining, hospitality spaces. But also at concourse level, we have a big open space there that is absolutely ideal for enabling big conference spaces to be set up. And so for us, you know, it is all about being flexible, adaptive, and responsive to the marketplace. And I guess for us, we as a business are steeped in royal heritage. So therefore, and we also as a client have very strong brand values. I think it's important to say that. So elegant, uplifting, and original goes to the heart of everything that we do and deliver for race and event days. And it's how we actually deliver that through not only the built environment, but also for the actual customer experience. So it is everything from, you know, the cuts and, you know, the cups and glasses, how it's catered for, how spaces are dressed how we entertain, and also the level of services that we provide to create memorable and unique experiences for our racegoers and for our customers. For me, I think one of the areas that's very important, central to my role, is the flexibility of spaces, and actually how does that translate into delivering the refurbishment projects that I've worked on. So a key one for me over the last 3 years has been the private hospitality boxes. So we're in year 4 of a circa £10 million investment programme to deliver the refurbishment of those boxes. And again, for me, it is very key. Debbie, you talked about the brief. The client brief is absolutely critical. So therefore, in order for me in my role to be able to translate that, I have to be completely conversed with exactly all the different needs of our business, whether it's for the catering side, whether it's for technology, who are the end users, and how do we adapt those spaces. So again, the design that we have developed, and you would have seen in the opening slides, is all about the nod at heritage and traditional values, however, being designed in a way that offers flexibility and creativity for those spaces to be made unique and adaptable for the end user for any particular day. And I think that's very important for us to remain relevant and actually provide something that people can see value in, that creates that unique environment for our end users. So the client brief and ensuring that all stakeholders within the company actually are brought in right at the beginning is critical to the success of any design work that we deliver for Ascot. And I guess for us, with the C&E side of life, we have bookings that come in, and and therefore we plan, and our teams will deliver and prepare for those. And I think it's probably different to you, Rob, in terms of your venue, from our initial discussions, isn't it? In terms of we're in control of that walk-in, whereas I think for you it's something completely different.
Yeah, very much so. So I think sort of Fulham Pier is going to be a complete contradiction, I guess, to many stadium and entertainment facilities meeting today, that we're actually looking to almost reverse the revenue model that many traditional stadiums have, that 80-20 big focus on match day, and then the 20 is the non-match day, which will be traditionally the conferencing events and stadium tours. But we're actually looking to, with Fulham Pier, to do something completely different, that we are going to be more driven on the non-match day, and then the match days are actually going to fit round it, which is a slightly different model. It takes a little while to get your head around it when operating in it, but I think with Fulham Pier, for those that haven't seen it, it's right on the banks of the River Thames. It's a host of there's a whole variety of bars and restaurants, an open food court, a hotel complex. We're putting a leisure and spa facility, a lot of the rooftop pools getting a lot of press at the moment. We've got a basement multi-purpose venue. We've got a whole host of conference and events facilities. And finally, a rooftop cocktail bar, which sounds quite fun. So all of this is on the banks of the River Thames in the heart of London. So, the opportunities here with this space, sort of a 365 perspective, are almost endless, because we want to be relevant to the local passerby who maybe wanted to grab a coffee when they're walking their dog, through to the local family wanting to have dinner to celebrate a birthday, or it could be even the London tourist market that want to come to an incredible destination, again in the heart of London on the banks of the River Thames. So we're looking to create here a game-changing leisure destination, but it's always going to be non-match day first, followed by match day. And I guess if we look into the sort of interior design piece, it's crucial, because we're now actually looking at space have to appeal for everyone and anyone that's coming in, with a whole variety of different purposes coming in. And people realistically might also be interacting with these spaces several times over the day. From, I always think in my head, at either ends of the spectrum, it could be someone coming for a fine dining nice evening in our restaurant on a Friday night, to the local dog walker coming by grabbing a coffee. They could be doing that as part of their routine, and we need to make sure these spaces maintain that energy and wanting to go there, having that really premium feel to it. And also, I guess, with the interiors, well, we need to think about how they're going to help us when we always think about that busy Saturday night, that match day, versus that cold, wintry December evening, midweek, where these spaces, we don't want them to feel like you're in this massive space and it's just perhaps you in there. We need to make sure they're feeling, again, premium and intimate, and can play between those two modes of capacity, I guess. So, and I guess how are we going to achieve that? I guess there's going to be a huge reliance on technology, and actually, as well as that, there's sort of pop-up activations and events to maintain that variety. We don't want people walking in there and feeling it's the exact same. We want it to feel fresh, vibrant, energetic. And there's always going to have to be something going on, and the interiors are going to have to play to this to facilitate a whole host of different events and almost modes that we're going to have to operate in. So it's a real challenging piece to get all of these pieces of the jigsaw together, still to maintain that premium experience and everyone feeling excited every time they come. So I guess we're going to move into match day or event day in Liz's world. And I think, you may notice I've talked about this 365 piece, but I've not actually mentioned match days once. And that's very deliberate, because when we look at Fulham Pier, these match days are going to fit around the non-match day, not the other way around, which takes a little, again, it's almost breaking that model that we've had previously. I guess we take sort of a step back from, when I joined Fulham, we have moved a lot of our premium inventory away from just catering for the football fan. I think the seminars this morning, all of them talk about flexibility and a range of different offerings. And we try to move our offerings away from not just that sort of traditional white tablecloth, fixed menu, a legend appearance and program on your table. We're trying to sort of offer more for everyone. And I think a good example of that is when ALS International toured Craven Cottage, I believe, in 2018 or 2019, where they took in football's first gin bar, and Seasons, a wine and tapas lounge overlooking the river. All of this is playing to a new audience. I mean, partially why we won that award for the best hospitality from the Football Business Award was because we were thinking about different audiences and different experiences, and the interiors would need to play to that. I think you look at Fulham Pier, this is only going to be such a bigger version of that we're going to need to really think about these premium spaces to how we make them relevant for everyone in this match day mode. But we can't, when we do this, we can't impact on non-match day, because we still need to have that premium that's relevant for everyone. So huge reliance on technology again to bring that football experience in, whether it be discrete screens or a whole host of audio-visual solutions. But also, I guess, when you think about match day mode, we've got all the things that make it a match day to get into these spaces without that compromise. So things like wayfinding, what a legend appearance might look like, staffing, meeting and greeting, and making sure everyone has that personal touch that Fulham is well known for their hospitality. I could go on, ticketing, access control, all these places that we need to think about to turn this from this everyday mode to match day mode. So Liz, I've talked so much there about the sort of our match day, so it'd be good to understand maybe about how sort of Royal Ascot may compare and differ to that.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, I think Royal Ascot, is synonymous with to me the summer season, but also an iconic week of fantastic Group 1 racing for the great British public, and indeed on an international scale it's got huge prominence too. I guess if you think about the actual environment of a racetrack, it is outward opening as opposed to a stadium, which obviously you've got an inward facing crowd of people. So I think one of the things that is great about the Royal Ascot as an event is that it is truly engaging across a huge spectrum of the public, i.e. there's something for everyone, with those who have an absolutely keen interest in the actual racing itself, to those who come for food, social, entertainment perspective as well. When I think about the setup for Royal Ascot, we have a team of around 150 people, full-time staff, but then we expand to about 6,500 with our temporary staff as well, in order to make that happen. And the way in which the spaces are used across our site, I think, is one of the critical elements to enable us to deliver different experiences and cater for different types of racegoers for Royal Ascot. As an event in itself. So when we have everywhere from the village where it's more kind of laid back kind of festival vibe, which is located over in the Heath, through to our Royal Enclosure, Top Hat and Tails, and then through to our Queen Anne Enclosure, and then our Windsor Enclosure. So different entry prices, everything from grab and go to 5-star Michelin dining experiences and afternoon teas and hampers and all sorts of things. In terms of some of the stats for that, we have over 300,000 people that attend over that 5-day period. So we're catering for a huge amount of people, and during that time we're non-stop, on the operational side, to ensure that everything is running absolutely smoothly, but also on point, because it doesn't, regardless of the food outlet or fine dining space that you are managing or looking after, it is all about the quality of experience and enabling people to have that opportunity to engage in creating that memorable experience. So and I think one of the most iconic points of the day is the royal procession along the Straight Mile, because it is the first opportunity when racegoers get to see Her Majesty the Queen and other members of the royal family, and that really marks that sense of occasion and actually Britishness, and it's part and parcel of the whole event. It is truly exceptional, and actually we are very fortunate because all our built environment gives us the structure and space to make those memorable experiences, but actually it's all the temporary structures. I think we have over 170 of those that are constructed just for the Royal Ascot experience for that week, to ensure that we're catering for absolutely every possible opportunity that we can, and that's what makes it memorable. The other thing I would say about it all is that actually the experience starts the moment you actually book your ticket. There's a plan your day guide on the website, the beautifully handwritten name badges for the Royal Enclosure members. All of those things make that experience unique. Even the journey to come to site, where you're parking, or if you're coming by train, you're coming on the Royal Ascot train from London. So there's a huge amount of expectation and anticipation that is created even before you get to the day. And therefore that is part of what that truly experiential experience we at Ascot strive year on year to improve upon, to make sure that it is exceptional first class environment. So from that perspective, it's fascinating, and I guess for Debbie, how do you respond to, Rob and I are just like chalk and cheese in a lot of respects in terms of what we're having to deal with on the day-to-day, but how do you, from a design perspective, respond to the needs of your clients when, we have got very different competing interests to deal with?
Different in terms of maybe the scale and the type of guests and the event, but really similar topics all kind of coming up through what Liz and Rob you've said, and previous sessions earlier on about making it relevant, about personal touches, memorable is the main thing our clients are saying to us now. We want this lounge, we want this space, we want this experience to be memorable, and how do you make it unique? For us, it's creating things that are authentic. So where you might have a themed or branded environment, what do you need to add to that authenticity? It's running through from every element of the offer. And I spoke previously about how this actually means you need more elements within your design, and ensuring there's enough budget to create that. You can't always create something authentic on the budget that you might have had before. For example, if you're creating a chop house, then you need to have the meat displays, the propping, the knives, the wine rooms, the extra elements that go into it just to add all that authenticity, creating that experience. Well, it was mentioned earlier on a previous session, how the matches or the event, it just isn't enough. There needs to be everything else around it to top up that experience. So whether that's the technology through apps and replays and so on, but how can we create that in the environment itself? How can we add in more experiences? So whether that's live music, live entertainment, theatre to the food and beverage, how do you add more experiences to just create that memorable experience? And Liz, you touched on kind of the experience running from the very beginning of, when they get their ticket, and how beautiful actually the tickets and the display and the mementos are. Well, our best projects are when we design and our guardians or input into all of those stages, because we can make sure that the brand's then consistent across every single application that the guest touches, from the ticket to the gift bag to the coat tag. And they're fascinating projects to work on because they do really create that authentic, seamless touch. I think looking maybe to the future, how might it change? I think our guests are going to want things that are more local, community relevant. So maybe that your signature dish is from the restaurants that's a popular restaurant in the area, or your local pub has a presence in the concourse, or perhaps the away team has a pop-up that's their local. So how do you create things that are then relevant as well? So not just authentic, but personalized to the club, to the event, to the fans, and using technology now to make sure that you understand your guests even better. Then you can add in all the extra personal touches by, you know, understanding their needs, their wants, desires, and how that might change match or event by event. So and the future's got to lead on to the sustainability aspect of design, which was our third topic, wasn't it, Rob?
Yeah, I was going to say that sort of when myself, Debbie and Liz got sort of together to sort of go through our sort of various areas we thought we could cover as part of this, and obviously myself and Liz with the great contrast between venues. I think sustainability was one of those that just kept coming up as a continuing theme, and certainly something we know is going to be the future. And I think as well, there's so much sort of global relevance to that now because everyone is thinking about sustainability and their choices. I think, you know, from our perspective, we are still sort of building the shell, so to speak, of the stand. So we're probably a little bit early on that sustainability journey as to what we're going to do with those interiors. But I think, you know, both when we were talking, Debbie and Liz had some great points on us on the sustainability piece. So I don't know, Debbie, do you want to start things off maybe some of the bits on sustainability?
Yeah, it's such a fascinating topic and something that should be through every element of a project. It was interesting on the talks earlier, kind of the 365 side, because that was obviously one of our topics and how that links with the sustainable aspect as well. But with buildings contributing 49% of the world's carbon, we have to do something in the construction industry. We have to think about it. How do we reuse, recycle? Predominantly a lot of our projects in hospitality are refurbishments, so by their very nature they're more sustainable. And how do you bring old stock up to new standards and just build clever and efficiently? From a day-to-day perspective, it's a minefield, I'll be honest, in terms of non-comparable ratings and accreditations, and it really is a topic that you can get absolutely completely lost in. So we have to be practical about this, and from a kind of micro side, everything that we select and specify, we have to think about extremely carefully. We have a huge responsibility to make sure that we make sound environmental decisions in our selections, and we've always been very respectful in terms of the client's budget. You should always be conscientious in terms of your specification to make sure it's fit for purpose and it lasts. But now even more so, you know, let's design for longevity. Let's make sure that we're not replacing and replenishing because of poor specifications and weighing up that against the budget. From our perspective, we work very collaboratively with all the other consultants. So it's not just the physical form. How do we make sure that through everything that we're designing, we make sure we're more sustainable? So working very closely with the food and beverage consultants, how are their operations working? It's fascinating understanding how much can be saved through food waste, through pre-ordering even just say at half time to reduce the amount that's pre-poured and wasted. So understanding their methodology so that we can make sure that our environment supports that. A lot of clubs now are using the recyclable cups. You know, it's a huge step. And you don't want that just to be a gesture from the clubs. You want that to be something that's a strategy that actually works. In reality, you know, we're dealing with people that can be lazy or you know, don't always follow the signage. So from our perspective, how do we make sure that this isn't a gesture by our clubs and our clients, and design in ways that certain rubbish can go into certain pockets with brushes around it or different apertures to make sure that the strategy works. So we support our clients in all their methodology, and if there's things that we can do in terms of the environment and the joinery and the signage to support that, then that's the level of detail that we need to be going to. I think the future is going to be really interesting, because where do you get to a point where as the guests, do you demand certain levels of offer or food, or reject certain things for certain menus because things are ethical? And from a provider's perspective, where do you go against maybe consumer demand and say, well, we're not providing that because that isn't ethical, it isn't sustainable? So I think there's going to be a real interesting push-pull between the two sides in the future, and it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. But Liz, I know you've got a vast estate of buildings of different ages and different levels of refurbishment, which must be another minefield of how you use sustainability strategy across them all.
Oh, absolutely, Debbie. I mean, it is a minefield. You're absolutely right, and it's like trying to eat the monster sometimes if you think about sustainability as a topic in its own right. I mean, there are so many facets to it. I think, however, what I would say is we take it from the macro. You know, we've got a government that is, you know, that did declare the climate emergency back in 2019. The consciousness in society about environmental matters has never been greater, and as a consequence, I think we have the duty of care in the estate and the venues that we manage and operate to respond positively to that. I think that's really important for all of us. You know, then to the task of, you know, how do we deliver, you know, net zero carbon by 2030 for all new buildings? How do we deliver, you know, the deadline of 2050 for all existing building stock to be net zero carbon? I mean, the reality, as you quite rightly said, the push and pull factors, you know, finance versus aspiration, are some of the big challenges that all venues have in order to respond effectively, proactively and productively to sustainability as a topic. At Ascot, you know, when I look at the projects that we deliver, taking the boxes project, for example, improving thermal U values for all the boxes has been one of the greatest, you know, achievements that we've, you know, undertaken very recently for the majority of our boxes. We've only got one floor now to complete, and so energy saving and energy consumption is very much in the heart of our consciousness. In terms of specification and products selection, well, again, you know, in terms of looking at carbon footprints, if I take the boxes project again, we replaced something like over 2,500 chairs for our private boxes. Now we went through a competitive tendering process. We were careful with our product selection. We actually came up and procured the services of a UK-based company who would, you know, deliver the chairs to the specification, quality and standard that we needed, however, using, you know, traditional materials, and, you know, are, you know, not too far away that actually we could draw on those, you know, that company in order to replace any chairs in future, rather than having to try and seek those, you know, further down the line, you know, if it was, say, a product from Europe or farther afield across the world. So again, you know, we are, whilst they may seem small measures, they are certainly a start for us. And we at Ascot do have our own sustainability strategy, which, you know, in spite of the pandemic, you know, it's very much again at the forefront of how we're trying to make sure we deliver. You know, we're back in the British Association for Sustainable Sport, you know, in how we provide a sustainable live working environment through recupping, use of cardboard, recycling materials, and even down to the point where, Debbie, you were talking about food management. Well, we're sourcing local products and meats. So we take sustainability very, very seriously into the heart of what we're doing. You know, I'm not going to lie, there's a huge amount of work to do. And this is a journey. This isn't a 5-minute quick fix for any of us. But what I would say is, you know, as long as there's good intention there and there is an aspiration, I think that we can, as I say, eat the monster by actually breaking it down into sizable bite-sized chunks, so that we can actually make those incremental improvements year on year. I could talk about the subject forever. It's very important, I think, for anyone working in the built environment. But you know, conscious of time and that we probably are out of it and need to wrap up now. So it's great, you know, talking to both of you. So thank you very much.
Perfect. So thank you, guys. That was very in-depth and interesting, and it's great to hear, you know, because you're all coming at it from different angles. Obviously, Debbie, you're the one responsible for designing these spaces and making them not only aesthetic but functional. And then, you know, Liz and Rob, you're at it from the other end as the client. You know, so how, I suppose an interesting question would be, you know, how do you get the best, almost like meeting of minds? You know, if there's like a club or a venue watching, you know, both from your side of things, Debbie, as the designer, and then Liz and Rob from your side as the client, how can you ensure that you get the best possible, not only concept, but then, you know, the actual real life? You know, obviously, Liz, you just finished your VVIP boxes, and Rob, you know, you're in the midst of your fantastic Fulham Pier. You know, so how are you ensuring that, you know, this all comes together and, you know, it ticks all of your boxes whilst also, you know, delivering that pleasing aesthetic? Perhaps Liz, you're on screen, so I'll let you go ahead first.
Okay. I didn't realise I was okay. Right. So, yeah, how do we achieve that best concept? Well, I think, you know, I think firstly we do have to be realistic and work within the parameters of budgets and constraints, and time actually is usually one of the big ones for us. I guess for me it's all about setting the brief, making sure that the right key stakeholders are engaged at the very outset, but also with that is bringing on board the design team to partner with us and work on that journey with us. Because actually I think where things can go wrong is either if there is either a brief that has not been well defined, or, you know, the designer has been brought too late into the process, where key decisions may have been taken at board level that have gone through an approval process that then can't be undone, or, you know, for whatever reason. So I think that is one of the, you know, the guiding principles that I have. I always think, well, start with the end user.
We know we'll have an opportunity. We know
But Mark's joining us again. Hang on, I'm just going to mute Mark for a second. I'm moving back to a attendee.
Thank you. So just to wrap up for me, it is about starting with the end user. You know, at the end of the day, you know, we are these buildings and environments that we are creating aren't there for 5 minutes. They're there for a very long period of time. They have to be sustainable, adaptable, functional, and deliver on the brief. So that is how, you know, my approach to managing that and to create the best concept for us.
And Rob, briefly, you've got about 60 seconds.
I'll keep it to 60 seconds. I think two main bits for me. I think it's about having a vision very clear from the outset, and having, you know, a really detailed brief about each space and what we want to achieve in each of the modes, given that we've got event day and match day to consider. And then secondly, I think to Liz's point, is that stakeholder involvement from the start. You know, Fulham Pier for us is going to impact pretty much every single area of the football club, from match day to non-match day, and having them involved in the start, because invariably it has to fit for everyone, which means you may have to make compromises, but invariably you've got to find the best solution for everyone as much as you can.
So Debbie, that must be music to your ears. Everyone seems to concur that, you know, you need to get the designer in at the earliest possible stage.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, speaking to the right people, establishing the right brief. But yeah, if the project's moved on too far, then we're limited with how much we can change. If we're working on a new build project with our architectural team, we'll be involved early stages, even just as part of the briefing, maybe one meeting every 2 months, just to keep that side of the interior design and understanding the guest experience and the guest journey involved in how the plan is developing. From our perspective, we work very closely with our other consultants to make sure that it's a really complete, coordinated design. But in terms of the early stages, we make sure that we do our research. So benchmarking other products, where do they think this compares to, and go and actually visit an event day. You know, if you're refurbishing a particular lounge or a particular space, then actually experience it as a guest and experience it as a fly on the wall. So at half time, I want to be running around and seeing actually how the place changes from half time to another time after, and speaking to the staff, understanding their challenges, because ultimately they'll be very different from what other stakeholders will think. So speaking to as many people involved in the project as possible to really establish what the brief is and what the challenges are and what the aspirations are, so that ultimately the product at the end meets all of those.
And just final, sorry, Katie.
Sorry,
Just a final quick one from me, I think, as well, is let's not also benchmark just within our own sport. There is plenty of great examples, not just in sport, but in London as a whole, that I think people need to consider. Particularly with our venue, we're not necessarily looking to compare to local football clubs. It's about the overall experience.
And that was actually Mark who was trying to join us again, is that he's just enjoyed his experience so much. But I know, you know, he's from a hotels background. And, you know, sort of it's amazing how now, and especially I think post-pandemic, all these spaces are going to have to act, you know, in the same way that luxury hotels and airline lounges, I can hardly remember what they are, but yeah, it's going to be a whole new world. But I'm looking forward to seeing the three of you at Liverpool, obviously in the new main stand, which I'm sure you know is a KSS designed project. And Rob, we can't wait to, you know, see that the Fulham Pier all delivered by then. And Liz, you know, I'm looking forward to getting to Ascot in the not too distant, even if I have to swim over, to come and see the VVIP spaces. So thanks again, guys.